Niching down, is it good strategy or setting you up for failure? Today on the Landlord Coach Daily Show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Landlord Coach Daily Show. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining me today. And today we are going to be talking about niching down. I don't know that I spelled niching correctly here. I don't know, whatever. It didn't give me an error, so I guess niching is a good word, is spelled accurately. But today we're going to be talking about niching down. For those of you who are joining me for maybe the first time, to both of my viewers out there in the entire universe, my name is Mark Dolfini, landlord coach and host of the Landlord Coach Daily Show. It's really good to see you. So niching down, is it a good strategy or setting you up for failure? So if you're not familiar with the concept of niching down, it's basically, it's getting specific. It's very clearly, specifically defining a target audience. Okay. So I'm going to put this first in the context of real estate. When I first got into the real estate business, I was interested in everything, right? Like we all start out like, you're going to be master of the universe. You're going to buy all sorts of properties. You're going to get, I was looking at, single family, multifamily, commercial, mixed use, parking garages, right? Self-storage units, raw ground, mobile home lots, whatever. There was this multitude of real estate that I was interested in out there. And, and again, I just saw all this ownership. I understood the value of owning real estate. I really want to get into a lot of different types of real estate. And of course, I'm in my early 20s. So, I didn't understand risk and all that stuff, but I wanted to understand it, right? So is niching down, is it a good strategy? So did it make sense as I saw these other people who are seemingly wealthy, who are owning all this different property. They owned all this different stuff. Did it make sense to diversify, from, if they were owning single family or multifamily or apartment buildings or whatever? I mean, I know some people that even own cemetery lots. I don't even know how that makes sense, but, but yeah, the thing was, I didn't understand how all of those individual things worked, right? Because it took a little bit of a different skill set to effectively manage each one of those. And if you don't believe me, just ask, because I tried a lot of different things. Just as an example, from a financing perspective, financing single family dwellings is different than financing industrial parks. It's just different. There's different levels of risk. So could I get a residential mortgage for a single family dwelling? Sure. Could I get a residential mortgage for a self-storage unit? Absolutely not. It's not what it's designed for, because the lender views risk differently, right? And they do different things with those loans. Sometimes they keep those loans in-house and they keep it as a portfolio loan, which means that they'll service it within that bank. Or sometimes they'll wrap it up, securitize it with other similar mortgages, and then sell it off to the secondary market, right? So thing is, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand all of that. I was very, very new. So of course I learn a lot by reading, and I read a lot. I read all throughout the day, and I read different books and do lots of different research on lots of different things. So my plan was to learn all I could, as much as I could, about all these different areas. And I think I concentrated on maybe 4 or 5 different areas. And I was looking at multifamily and single family homes. And I might have looked at self-storage units at that point in time. But again, this is in the late 90s, or no, it's probably even in the mid 90s, because I was still in the Marine Corps. But I was learning all I could about, then of course I got sucked into stocks and mutual funds and, all that different stuff. So to me, I looked at it as all under one giant blanket of investments. The thing was, once I got out of the Marine Corps, and of course, then I had the ability to start looking at properties and making offers. And I was in Indiana at the time. I was going to school full-time at Purdue. I was working a full-time job. And so then I started making offers on properties that I really had no business making offers on. And I'll tell you why. because I didn't understand the valuation. I didn't understand how values were being placed on certain things. So I'll give you a quick example. If I went up to you and said, "Hey, I'm going to sell you a Mickey Mantle baseball card for $500," would you want to buy that Mickey Mantle baseball card for $500? If you're in the baseball card arena, you'd be like, I don't know, like you probably go to eBay and or Google and say, well, what is the value of a, and then you all of a sudden you're just going to start to learn about, how sharp are the corners, are, what's the condition of it, is it A plus condition, is it C condition, I don't know, what, I'm making stuff up here. But for a Mickey Mantle baseball card, it's probably worth 40 times the amount of money that I'm wanting for this baseball card. So for you, you'd say, I don't know, I don't want to pay $500 for something that might be worthless, right? Or someone else might come along and say, you didn't take the deal. You didn't pay $500 for a baseball card that's worth $100,000. What are you, stupid? No, it's just that you didn't understand valuation. It's the same thing that I was doing when I was making offers on, open ground and properties that were multifamily that were 3 towns over, that I had no understanding of what I was doing. I was just throwing stuff out there just to kind of, I guess, maybe feel important, but at least feel like I was doing something, right? So, I didn't understand the I just didn't understand the valuation. And I also didn't understand the needs of the end user. So let's say, for argument's sake, that the end user for that vacant ground was going to be for a developer. I didn't understand what the needs of a developer were. I didn't even know what a developer meant at that point in time, right? The developer will develop the land and then sell it to, someone to do the vertical, to do, do you sell individual lots, to be absorbed through, somebody that does, absorption is actually a banking term where, the individual lots are being sold off individually, right? That's called absorption. But if you don't develop the land and have that already lined up for a builder to build the individual houses, I mean, that vacant land is doing nothing for anybody, right? And meanwhile, you've got all these sunk costs in on developing the land. So I didn't understand the needs of the end user. So therefore, I couldn't understand valuation. Even if somebody came along to me and said, this is what's valuable, right? If I was buying a single family home, for example, which is where I wound up, I ended up understanding the needs of the individual users, of the end user, because I saw a need for people who are wanting to rent 3-bedroom houses, because they like renting houses. Houses rent so much faster, or were renting so much faster at the time, than single, like, 1-bedroom apartments. I'm not saying in your market may be different. I mean, it's always different, no matter, it's very geographically specific. But I'm just saying, in my particular market, houses have always rented fast. And so I got to understand the needs of the individual end user, the end customer. So for me, niching down and staying focused on one area, which was residential, single family dwellings, and didn't mean that I didn't, can't see deals here or there on other things, but I didn't want to get distracted. If you chase too many rabbits, you end up catching none. That was the whole thing. So for me, the happily ever after moment was when I decided, you know what, it's a lot less stressful to try to learn all this stuff about 15 different asset types, and I know I'm going to get some flack by this. I know there's people out there who are just, they can do all sorts of deals in real estate and make money at it. But for me, I want to keep my life a little bit more simple. I don't want to be so damn busy that I can't do anything, and then, have to worry about which ball that might get dropped, because, I'm worried about doing a deal over here and I forget about this deal over here. And, oh, wait, I have to shift gears and I have to wear a different hat because, oh, that's commercial and that's residential. I don't want to have to worry about that. I don't want to work that hard. I don't want to worry about too many things getting dropped. I'm going to bring this into another context outside of the realm of real estate for just a second. And that is where I get a lot of people who ask me, different advice about doing a podcast, for example, or different advice about doing maybe writing a book. Because, obviously I've written a book. I wouldn't call this a podcast because I don't syndicate this out, at least not yet, but that's not my intention right now. But I just do a video cast and I upload it to YouTube. But people ask me for advice about different things about this, right? They're like, oh, yeah. And it's always so funny because I did the same thing. They always like, yeah, I got a mic, I got a studio, I got this camera. Man, you don't need all like they're so worried about the thing, right? You can do this thing on your phone. I promise you. That's not the big thing. That's not what's going to make it interesting. What's going to make it interesting is, are you speaking to a specific niche? Are you speaking directly to your avatar, right? And like for me, I recognize like my avatar that I like working with within Landlord Coach are married couples with children, right? Who maybe have a Christian background. Like that's somebody I can, relate to. And they don't have to be. I'm just saying that's generally my target audience. That's generally who my message resonates with them more specifically. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to attract people who are in, that's the bullseye for me, right? But it doesn't mean that I'm not going to attract people who may be single parents or don't have kids or, are married or not married, whatever, but they share the same values as me, right? Most people know I'm a gun-toting, Bible-reading, kind of a guy, and has had struggles in his marriage. And if you've been married for more than 15 minutes, you understand what I'm talking about. But I mean, I resonate with them. Like my message resonates with them. They get that. So if I'm attracting my client avatar, it's because I'm not trying to speak to everybody. I'm not trying to appeal to a broad audience. To me, I had to get really, even though I kid and say, oh, both of my viewers out there, my 2 viewers, I don't get a lot of views on my videos, but the ones I do get, I get people who will respond to me and say, man, like your message really hit home today. And that to me is worth it. I don't want to be the Walmart of video casts. I don't want to be the Walmart of landlord coaching. I'm not trying to be everything to everybody. I saw a quote one time and it say, I'd rather be someone's shot of whiskey than everyone's cup of tea. And I thought that was, a cute way of saying the same thing. Like, don't be afraid of niching down. So I think it's really more about specifically and deliberately writing down who it is that who your message is for, who is it you're trying to speak to. And you can do that in real estate. You can do that. And now just be careful, like, don't violate fair housing. I mean, if you are, you're a douche, but I'm just saying, like, don't say, like, you can target and say, well, I want to rent to people in those neighborhoods. And so that's where I'm going to invest. Now, if that neighborhood happens to be, a mile away from a hospital where a lot of doctors live, okay, well, that makes sense to target that avatar. Okay. And you can advertise there. Now, you still can't say, well, I'm not going to rent to you because you're not a doctor. I mean, I suppose you're still going to attract people from the 789 ring. But, if in terms of fair housing, if you don't know fair housing, I'm not going to make this into a fair housing tutorial, but you need to know those laws, and not just the federal laws, but if there's local laws, things like that. So, as long as you can define your avatar in terms of who you're going to want to work with, then absolutely invest in the neighborhoods with people you want to work with, right? If you don't want to work in certain neighborhoods, if you don't want to work in high-class neighborhoods, then don't invest in high-class neighborhoods or other neighborhoods or whatever. That's how you define your avatar. If you're looking to write a book, for example, then specifically write to that person. It's a lot easier to address an email to one person than it is to address an email to 500 people, right? Because you're like, well, I don't want to offend that one, but I might be able to say this. As a result, when you're in the middle, you're boring. No one cares. And all it is a political speech at that point, right? So that's what I would say there would be my biggest advice is, don't be afraid to niche down. You might only get 1 or 2 or 2% of the population, but that might be all that you need. And for whatever the purpose is, define your purpose, especially if it's related to a book or a podcast. Define your purpose. What are you doing it for in the first place? And I would get really specific about and get intentional about that and write that reason down, because I'll tell you, after a while, when you feel like you're hollering into an empty well, you're going to wonder why you're doing this all in the first place. Ask me how I know. All right, everybody, that's all I have for today. If you are interested in a webinar I have coming up this Saturday, and it's not every single Saturday, so if you're watching this on replay, just check and see. But I do it's at 10 o'clock on some Saturdays. I would say most Saturdays, but this next couple Saturdays, I'm going to be a little bit busy. But this coming Saturday, I've got a webinar coming up. You can check that out at landlordcoach.com/webinar. It's going to be about how to make your rental business run a little bit more smoothly. And you can check that. And I'm going to wrap up with a quote of the day, which is, I think, appropriate. I've did one similar to this recently, but this is one that's also appropriate. Diversification is protection against ignorance. It makes very little sense for those who know what they're doing. It makes very little sense for those who know what they're doing. There we go. I said that twice. All right. That's all I have for today, everybody. Please be sure to place a value on your free time, because if you don't, someone else will. But most important, there is no amount of money that will make time irrelevant. Have an awesome day, and I will see you next time.